Okay,
turn the clock.
having finally reached the hour of 10 a.m., I am calling the meeting of our Transportation Committee to order. Can we have a roll call?
Chaplin,
Here.
Covert,
Here.
Evans, here, Ozog,
Here.
Tornatore,
Here.
Zay.
Here.
Okay, do we have any public comment?
We do not.
All right. Next, I'm going to move to approve the minutes of our meeting from February
Second.
20th, 2024. I have a second. Any comments, changes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Next, we have procurement requisitions. I move for approval of 240803. Recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Harris Govern for annual software maintenance and support services as needed for the period of April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025 for building and zoning, $10,702, Division of Transportation, $6,421, and Public Works, $2,140 for a contract total not to exceed $19,263. Not suitable for a competitive bid, sole source. I have a second. And I also want to remind everyone that it is a first Tuesday. Okay, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Next, I move for approval of 240816, recommendation for the approval of contract to Hopkins Ford of Elgin Incorporated to furnish and deliver hybrid transmission parts and repair services as needed for the Division of Transportation for the period of April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $15,000 per lowest responsible bid. I have a second. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Move for approval of 240817, recommendation for the approval of a contract to King Transmission Company Incorporated to furnish and deliver transmission parts and repair services as needed for the Division of Transportation for the period April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $15,000 per lowest responsible bid. I have a second. Comments or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, I move for approval of 240818, recommendation for the approval of purchase order to Bauman Trailer Sales and Towing to furnish and deliver one air tow trailer to the Division of Transportation to be delivered between March 5th, 2024 through November 30th, 2024 for a contract total not to exceed $16,890 per lowest responsible quote.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I move for approval of FMP 001224, recommendation for the approval of a contract to A&P Grease Trappers for sanitary grease trap and storm basin pumping, jetting, and cleaning as needed for the county campus for facilities management for the period April 14, 2024 through April 13, 2025 for a total contract not to exceed $82,750 per renewal option. Third and final option to renew, $60,000 for facilities management, $5,200 for animal services, and $17,550 for the Division of Transportation. And I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
There's a sexy contract.
It is
That you talked
one of the
about.
sexiest contracts that comes through our purview. I move for approval of PWP 000624. Recommendation for the approval of a contract to Sheffield Safety and Loss Control for safety
Second.
program manager services for the period of April 1st, 2024 to March 31st, 2025 for a total contract not to exceed $100,000. Public Works, $25,000. Facilities management, $25,000. Transportation, $25,000. And stormwater, $25,000. For renewal option under bid, first and final option to renew. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
I move for approval of DTP 001524, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to A1 Warren Oil Company to furnish and deliver gasoline and diesel fuel as needed for the Division of Transportation and Public Works for the period of April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $1,750,000. DOT $1 million, Public Works $750,000 per renewal option under bid award, first of 3 renewals.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And blush. Move for approval of DTP 001624. Recommendation for the approval of a contract to Standard Equipment Company to furnish and deliver one 2024 International Vector chassis with sewer cleaner for the Division of Transportation for the period of March 5th, 2024 to November 30th, 2024 for a contract total not to exceed $599,660. Contract pursuant to Intergovernmental Cooperation Act.
Second.
Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I move for approval of DTP 001724, recommendation for the approval of contract to Stanley Consultants to provide professional construction and engineering
Second.
services for County Highway 3 Warrenville Road over the east branch of the DuPage River for the Division of Transportation for the period of March 12th, 2024 through November 30th, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $801,990, professional services vetted through a qualification-based selection process. I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Move for approval of DTP 001824. Recommendation for the approval of a contract to HDR Engineering for professional concept development engineering services for the County Highway 11 Army Trail Road at Munger intersection improvements for the period March 12, 2024 through November 30th, 2025 for a contract total not to
Second.
exceed $171,926.78. Professional services vetted through a qualification-based selection process. And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have some resolutions. I move for approval of DTR 000924. Adoption of a resolution stating the county's stance on the complete streets design criteria for the improvements at the intersection of Illinois Route 53 and 75th Street. Any
Second.
questions about this? I have a second.
Oh.
Any questions about this? All in favor?
Aye.
I next move for approval of DTR 001224, joint funding agreement for construction work between the County of DuPage and the Illinois Department of Transportation for County Highway 3 Warrenville Road over the east branch of the DuPage River. Estimated county cost $1,507,432.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I move for approval of 240815. Amendment to Resolution DTR 0178A21, intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and the Village of Lisle for improvements along County Highway 3 Warrenville Road
Second.
and the replacement of the bridge over the east branch of the DuPage River to correct a Scrivener's error, county to be reimbursed $414,238. Okay, I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and next we have a couple of IGAs. I move for approval of DTR 001024, an intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and the City of Wheaton for improvements of the city-owned property adjoining the DuPage County Government Campus, no county cost. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any comments or questions about this? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I move for approval of DTR 001124, intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and the Addison Township Road District for the Addison Township 2024 Road Maintenance Program, no county cost.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we're going to move to our presentation from CMAP, and I'm going to turn it over to John. Thank you.
Good morning, committee. I wanted to introduce Katie Piotrowska from Chicago Metropolitan Agency Planning. She's going to come talk to you about the Butterfield Road Corridor Plan, which is in our County Board District 2. The project was spearheaded by the Village of Lombard, and we did provide a local match of approximately $5,000 for this project. There is some unincorporated property along the corridor, but she's going to tell you a little bit about what she has, what's going on with the project and where they stand presently. So the corridor basically runs from I-355 all the way over to Illinois 83 along Butterfield and 22nd Street. One of the busiest and most congested corridors in the county, obviously. It also happens to be one of the corridors with biggest safety issues, for transportation. IDOT happens to be engaged in an ITS, Intelligent Transportation Systems project for almost $16 million in the whole corridor. We are participating with them on that, especially at locations like Summit, Midwest, Myers Road and Finley Road to improve ADA and the corridor traffic systems along the way. So Katie's here to talk to you about that, and you can ask her questions about it. Thanks, Katie, for coming out and sharing with us.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Piotrowska. I'm Senior Planner at the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. As John mentioned, I'll be going over the Butterfield Road Corridor Plan. which is an effort that the county has been involved in over the last several years. The process wrapped up in January of this year, and we're sort of finalizing this planning process right now. Next slide, please. So just a quick agenda. I'll introduce, who CMAP is, if you're not aware, how this project came about. I'll go over some of our community outreach overview that went into this planning process. I'll briefly go over the plan goals and recommendations, and then talk about how it can be used or implemented. So CMAP is the Chicago Region's Metropolitan Planning Organization. We serve the region's 7 counties and 284 municipalities. Our main function is allocation of federal funds for transportation projects. But we also have a local technical assistance program where communities and organizations can apply for technical assistance, and that's how this project came about. So as John mentioned, the village of Lombard actually applied for this assistance, and we approached the neighboring communities along the corridor as well as the county to see if they would be interested in joining this effort and sort of expanding the study area and the scope of the project. So on the next slide, we have the project study area outlined in red. It's really focused on Butterfield Road, which is depicted in yellow here. And we have the villages of Downers Grove, Oak Brook, and Lombard, as well as parts of unincorporated DuPage County in the study area. So these are the entities that worked on this project with us. The goal really of the project was to create a multi-jurisdictional vision for the corridor. It focused on 4 main areas, including transportation, economic development, housing and livability, and parks and open space. Community outreach was a really important part of this process. So throughout the planning process, we engaged with over 300 people. That included, stakeholder interviews with stakeholders such as residents, business owners, property owners, transit riders, senior residents. So really a wide variety of stakeholders. We put out several community surveys. We had a project engagement page where folks could come and leave their ideas, provide suggestions for what they'd like to see for the corridor. We also had a steering committee that was made up of representatives of the different communities that really helped guide the whole planning process. And then at the end, we had a public open house where people could come and give feedback on the draft recommendations of the plan. So here's kind of a snapshot of what we've heard throughout the community outreach process. This area is changing quite a bit. There are more residential developments that are popping up. So we heard from a lot of people that they would like to see more green space, especially near those residential developments. We heard that access to regional trails from the study area is not really well connected currently. So that's a desire that came out quite a bit. Also enhanced local bus service. So there is a PACE bus route, several PACE bus routes actually, that go through this area, but many people either aren't aware of, where the bus goes, or sometimes the sidewalks are not connected to bus stops. So that's something we've heard from many stakeholders. In general, sidewalk connectivity, we heard that it's not very easy to walk from where you live if you want to go shopping across the street even. Sometimes it's, hard and difficult to, get around on foot. So that's something that came up quite a bit. And then improve public transit access to the area's employment opportunities. So this was specifically from employees who work in the corridor. We heard that, it's not easy to not drive basically to where they work. And, there needs to be an improved public transit access. So all of this feedback really helped create our main goals for the plan. So I'll briefly go over those main goals and recommendations. The first one is to support multimodal transportation options in the corridor. This includes improving roadway safety, which, as John mentioned, there are, quite a lot of incidents that happen in this corridor, that are safety issues. So on the next slide. Improving roadway safety is one of the main recommendations here. So working with IDOT to address some of those high crash locations. Supporting pedestrian safety and accessibility through a well-connected sidewalk network, as well as high visibility crosswalks to make it easier for people to get around on foot. Providing safe access to the area's current and future bike infrastructure. So there are a number of regional trails that are nearby, including the Illinois Prairie Path, the Salt Creek Trail, but currently they're sort of disconnected from this corridor. So I know that, the county is working on a project on Myers Road, which would provide a connection to the Salt Creek Trail. So, supporting those types of activities is definitely recommended. And then enhancing local PACE bus service and improving access to bus stops. PACE is working on a PACE Pulse project in this corridor. So, there is sort of ongoing work here, but just making it, easier for people to get around by bus, and making those sidewalk connections to bus stops is one of the recommendations. The next goal is to maintain quality of life for the corridor's residents and ensure access to businesses and jobs. So as I mentioned, there are quite a number of residential developments that have gone up here in the last several years. So there are new residents moving into the area. So this goal really speaks to, maintaining their quality of life, improving their sort of livability. So on the next slide, we have some of the recommendations under this goal. Improving livability could be done through improving the pedestrian environment, as well as utilizing some vacant or underutilized parking lots as green space. Perhaps, putting in pocket parks, especially near those residential developments. Enhancing the area's housing choices and access to the corridor's jobs and amenities. This recommendation kind of speaks to making sure that there are a variety of housing types and prices near the corridor. So that a variety of, residents could access the amenities that are here. As well as making sure that there are good first and last mile connections for employees that work here that maybe aren't relying on a personal vehicle to get to the corridor. This goal really is focused on economic development, so ensuring that the corridor is resilient to changing market conditions for office and commercial properties. We've had a lot of good conversations with economic development experts that work in this corridor. There's been quite a bit of change post-pandemic in the way people work and shop, so there are a number of office vacancies. Some of the big box stores are sort of changing the way they do things. So the recommendations under this goal, on the next slide, really talk about, some of those changes. So as more residents move in, attracting those neighborhood serving businesses near housing will be important. We've heard a lot about the desire for a grocery store within walking distance to some of those housing developments. Another recommendation is for the communities to work collaboratively to activate some vacant properties and market the corridor as a whole to potential developers or investors. And then modifying development regulations to be more flexible in promoting different developments that may be, market supported. And, given some of the changes that have gone on in the office and commercial real estate. The last goal here is to ensure that residents and employees have access to parks and open space. So this kind of has been sprinkled out throughout the plan. But on the next slide, the recommendations here include incorporating green space throughout the corridor. So as I mentioned earlier, this could be through incorporating pocket parks into underutilized parking lots. Maybe utilizing some of that space for community events, which is something we've heard to improve that livability. And then increasing pedestrian and bicycle access to nearby parks and open space. So There, like I mentioned, there are, a number of regional trails nearby, but also open space amenities that are currently disconnected from the corridor. So, making those connections, would increase the, pedestrian and bike access for residents that live here. So in terms of plan implementation and how this document can be used in the future, it can be used as a supportive document for state and federal funding opportunities. CMAP administers a number of programs that fund transportation projects. So communities that are involved in this process could, apply and use this document as sort of a supportive piece of documentation. Throughout this process, we also, previous slide, established kind of a coordination committee between the entities that were involved in this project. So we met on a monthly basis. So we hope that, that establishes the process going forward for multi-jurisdictional coordination, not only between the corridor communities and the county, but also with partner agencies like PACE and IDOT. So that's the end of the brief presentation. I want to thank the county for participating in this process, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Katie. Anybody have any questions for Katie?
I just have a question that really is kind of outside the scope of this, but was there any talk between the businesses of having maybe a shuttle service between like Oak Brook Mall and, Yorktown Mall or anything? Kind of like how they do in Schaumburg, how there's just a shuttle so you can just park your car once and then go to all the different places. Was there?
Yeah, we had some conversations with folks from Oak Brook. I guess there were shuttle services that were servicing some of the office buildings in the past. But with sort of the post-pandemic change and how people commute to the office these days, there wasn't enough ridership to keep those going. But I think, servicing those commercial properties, I think would make a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, because I shop there all the time, way too much. And I go between Oak Brook and Lombard and the Nordstrom Rack. There's so many places there that, during Christmas time, when it's really crowded and you can't find parking, it might be nice to just park your car once and, hit everything.
Right.
But that wouldn't be, I don't think that would be a public transportation thing. I think it would be more just something that the businesses offer to increase traffic to all the different places.
Yeah, sounds good.
I think we're still in a recovery period for something like
That's
that
true.
to be reinstated. Member Zay.
When you talk about roadway safety, what's your recommendations for that? Is it expanding? Is that doing more at certain intersections? What's the plan for that?
Yeah, so the recommendation is more about specific intersections. So I think if you all had the plan document, there's a map where there are certain intersections where crash numbers are higher than, than other locations. So yeah, the recommendation is really focused on those specific areas first, and, address those safety issues there. And that would require collaboration with IDOT since they have jurisdiction over Northfield Road.
Well, I'm just concerned because the Water Commission is one of their main transmission lines runs down Butterfield Road, completely right there. So any kind of work, we just had a leak from AT&T hitting it with a boring, thing. So we just want to make sure that if they're going to do something, that we know about it. And then for green spaces, I know Yorktown's being redeveloped and stuff. Doesn't the local jurisdiction there has to be so much green space in on when they put these developments in? Because we're going to see that more with these malls, outdated malls being updated and putting residential in there. I know we're looking for more green space, but that's kind of they should have that in their zoning ordinances, that there should be so much green space for each development, right?
Yeah, so there are, with the redevelopment projects that are happening, there is a number of private green spaces that are being incorporated. I guess, one thing that we've heard from residents is that there isn't a lot of like public, open space where anyone could come to and just hang out. I know that the Village of Lombard, right now they're working on a residential redevelopment that will include kind of a plaza, that is open to the public. So, that's a good first step. But a lot of the current sort of green spaces are for private, entities, people who live in the residential development.
Thank you.
Member Garcia.
I'm just wondering if I can get a copy of this plan. This is in my district, so I just wanted to see if I can get a copy. I'd be happy to share. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
We also have an online version of the plan, where it has kind of more interactive, components to it. Yeah, so
So I
that's
could just-
open.
Give me an email of that. That'd be great. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? Katie, thank you so much for your presentation. Okay. And thank you, John. Next, we're going to move on to old business. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, that's fine. Old business. I just had a question about 7B, which I didn't get asked.
7B.
7B, it's the construction work on Warrenville over the east branch of the DuPage River. Do we have a time frame for that? Only because that's how I get.
So the sooner you do it, the she won't be able to find the better.
I think,
Teleport.
so we're, the project's being advertised through IDOT because it's got federal bridge funds. So that's why the cost of the, county's cost is considerably less than, than the actual cost to rebuild the bridge. It's got a letting date with IDOT here in the spring, and so the construction is likely to start in the fall of this year. What we don't know right now is at what point, drivers are gonna feel the pain of the narrowing of the bridge, but we do expect that there will be a lane open in each direction. Right now, there's no expectation it's going to be only one direction.
Okay, that's good. So, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I'm going to turn it over to Bill, who's going to give us a project status update.
Thank you. So you may remember, back in the fall before he left, Chris Snyder, mentioned that this time of year, we sometimes have to shuffle some of our projects around based on what was in the budget and what some of the right of way and permitting and that sort of thing causes us to maybe not be able to do a project we were expecting to do this year. So we are at that point, and so I've got a list here of a few of the projects that we had presented as part of our budget that we were intending to do this year, but are not going to happen, and some of what we're backfilling that work with. So we had planned on doing Bloomingdale Road Bridge replacement. Is one of the three load-rated bridges that we have, Warrenville, Geneva, right up here, and then Bloomingdale Road, that are on our list. We are working through some issues with the railroad. That's over the railroad's Canadian Nationals track. So that is just taking longer than we anticipated. So that project is not going to happen this year. The Illinois Prairie Path Volunteer Bridge here in Wheaton, that's over the Union Pacific Railroad. That was a project that we have designed, but was at the request of the railroad, and they're not ready for us to move ahead with that project yet. So we're going to defer that project until they're ready. That's not really our project per se. We have to get out of their way. But the impetus for us doing that is whenever they're ready for their work to begin. We have two drainage projects that we intended to do this year that are still working through some design and permitting issues. St. Charles Road between County Farm Road and Gary Avenue, and Park Boulevard between Illinois 53 and Illinois 56. And so both of those are going to be held off here a little bit longer as well. So that totals about $9 million of work that we were expecting to do this year that now we are not. And so we plan on adding some resurfacing work. This year, we had held our resurfacing contracts, our budgeted work down to $5 million. We've been doing $10 million annually. To allow some of these bridge projects to go forward, we lowered that to 5. So we're proposing to go back up to about 5.5 additional million. So it's around 10.5 million. And then we've actually got some right-of-way needs that were unexpected that are related to some of the other projects we're doing. That's probably going to be in the order of about $1 million between several of the projects. So that money, it's not an even exchange right now. It's a decrease of 9 million and an addition of about 7 million. So at some point, we'll probably come back and share a couple other projects that we plan to do. I just want to give the committee the update on where we stand with that work. Yes.
Okay, so we're taking the money from these projects, putting it into different projects, right? Okay, so then for the next budget cycle, we'll have to re-budget for then these projects that we're taking the money from.
Right, and,
Okay.
and
Just wanna make
the
sure.
expectation for that on our end is that the resurfacing is the projects that'll come out. Because next year, we were looking at having our $10 million
Okay.
resurfacing
That's it.
again,
Yeah.
so we'll drop that to 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right. Just always thinking about.
Okay. Any other questions for Bill? Okay, we're gonna let you off the hot seat. Thank you very much. Any other old business? Hey, any new business? Mr. Zay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, there's been some talk about a stoplight at St. Francis High School. I mean, this has been, I don't remember Eckhoff and I have been talking about this for years. It's between District 6 and District 4. I mean, I know it's Wheaton's call and IDOT's call and Senator Lewis been working on, but that's a Band-Aid for that area. I mean, that needs to be, I mean, that's been on IDOT's list for how long? I mean, Roosevelt Road is in bad shape. I mean, and now the McDonald's is closed, and I was hoping that was a sign that they were gonna realign that. But now the rumor is that there's gonna put an Aldi store in there, which would even compound the traffic even more at that corner. So, I mean, can we reach out to the state and see what the status is? Because putting a light there, I mean, I know it's safety for the high school and stuff, but I mean, I can't imagine them putting a light there and then the traffic turning at County Farm and Roosevelt Road. I mean, it's really gonna be difficult. And that, I mean, Roosevelt Road is in desperate need of, repair, and the state's been had it on the list forever.
Right.
And I mean, I think there needs to be some coordination because obviously County Farm ends, it's ours, but in the morning, that turning, I mean, there's gonna have to be some coordination of lights and everything else there, because it's gonna be, I know what they're trying to do and it's for safety, but I think it's just gonna make things probably worse
Right,
at this
right.
point.
So I can, a couple of things on that. I'm happy to try to reach out to IDOT and find out kind of where they're at, big picture with that whole corridor. They, for many years, they've said they want to treat the area that you're talking about, right at County Farm and 38 and Winfield and 38 together as one big project and kind of do some improvement between them.
And it needs it. That bridge is there and that, I mean, it's falling apart. That whole
That's
part of the
a
road
little
is really falling apart.
Right. So I know from their perspective, they've been struggling with, do we do 2 separate improvements or do we do a big improvement? So I can reach out to find out about that.
Or do nothing at all.
Or do nothing.
Yeah, which they've been doing, for about 20 years on this.
As far as the traffic signal timing, if they do build that traffic signal that, obviously it's been in the paper last, week or two. Those signals are all IDOT's to time. So even though we do have County Farm Road intersecting with 38, that entire stretch of 38 is IDOT's. And so they will make sure that they focus on how those signals work together. I can't say whether
Yeah, so
anybody in this
now
room would
they're-
like it or not, but they will.
Okay,
They are responsible for those timings.
thank you. I just think it's,
We'll reach
I
out.
understand what they're trying to do, but I mean, it's just a Band-Aid of what really needs to be done in that area over there.
Could you fill me in on that information too, Bill? I'm not on
Yeah.
transportation, but I'd like to see that.
Yeah, whatever we find out, I'll make sure.
Senator Chapman?
Thank you. And I attended a meeting back in December, where this topic came up, this light. And I know the light may help for some safety, but it's not, there's no way possible that they could even put a pedestrian overpass there. Is that correct?
I would say, I can't speak for IDOT, but,
I-
just from
Private property on
from
one
the,
side, yeah.
from the land that's available on either side of the road, it seems.
Or anywhere in that like vicinity. I mean, because I'm just saying, like in Florida, there's like pedestrian overpasses everywhere. It's very easy walkable. And even the light makes me nervous too with the kids because sometimes people aren't paying attention to the light. I mean, and that's a very busy road with the 4 lanes. I mean, it makes me very nervous.
They
So
mostly have a police officer
I know,
out
I
there
know.
in the
I know.
morning and
I
afternoon.
know they have that there, but that's dangerous for them too.
I mean, we've been trying for years. I mean, we went to the Senate president, who was a St. Francis grad,
Oh, boy.
and asked for help. And if we
Yeah.
couldn't do it when he was the Senate president, I mean, I'm not holding my breath here, but at some point, it's gotta be addressed. I mean, they came out with plans and again, it's been years and years and years since they've addressed it. Nice to get some funding there.
The good news right now, it seems that, Wheaton's engaged in the conversation. IDOT is re-engaged in the conversation. At least based on what I've seen in the paper. I mean, I only know right now that the update I have is what I've seen.
Okay, no, great, thank you.
Member
And
Rutland.
Jay, I just want to say, Liz, I saw this, there is a couple miles further east on Roosevelt,
Is
an
that
underpass.
Which was
Little
probably
directional
built
board.
in the Works Progress Administration.
I'm sure, but
So I don't know about that either.
yeah.
So
Member Evans.
my question is, where do they want to put this light? Is it at the Target?
Right at the
or is
Target.
it the?
It's
Fab-
actually
Fab
kind of
Circle?
east of the Target. There's a Jimmy John's because
Yeah, okay.
it-
Where Fab
that,
Circle
that
is.
nor, that first entrance to Target when you're traveling westbound,
Uh-huh.
that's where they want to put it because that would also, there's a housing development across the street as well,
Right,
which is owned by the Franciscan Sisters. And so it would be a dual for those people as well as for the St. Francis, because St. Francis parks in the Target parking lot. So you've got that going on and it's a challenge. So,
right. I just wanted to know if it was at the actual intersection with Fab Circle or at Target.
Yeah, and I think part
Oh,
of,
wait,
I
it's
think
Fab
it's being,
Circle?
I think it's still, I think it's still in discussion.
that's what's being discussed.
Yeah.
Because there,
You know.
it was either Fab Circle or it would be one less than a block west at the actual entrance to Target. So, and then
Cause
they,
that's tough because,
That's so
we have
close
a
to-
light that, people want to cross where they want to cross, even if there's a crosswalk or not. So I'm not sure if it's at Fab Circle, they're still gonna jaywalk across, but I hope it's in the right place is what I'm saying.
lots to discuss. So, any other comments or questions? Okay, no other new business? Hearing none, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Stay